Hi guys, welcome back to a chapter day series. So this is my fourth take for this. Patience. But yeah, welcome back to another chapter. And I feel like I should be adding some background music when I say welcome back to another chapter day series. I'll think about it. Sorry for the little noise. I was closing the door. But yeah, I'll think about adding a little background music just to make, everything sound interesting, kind of like podcast vibes. But yeah, welcome back to another chapter. So we're 11 days from finishing the book of Deuteronomy. Like I've said this so many times, like I'm keeping track of the days, and the more we get closer, the more unreal it just seems to me, because I felt like I was gonna give up halfway through the end, maybe stop at like the book of Numbers and not go through with it at the end. But God really just amazes me each day. He gives me more grace to just overcome, and I ask that He gives me more grace. We reach the end of the book, the Bible, and we do more amazing things for a chapter a day. So yeah, that's really amazing. And a little bit of imposter syndrome is just starting to kick in. Like I'm realizing, I feel like this is so unreal, but I know it's so real at the same point. But yeah, we're almost done. Like I'm so happy. Really, I can't express how I feel, but yeah, we're almost done. So today we're reading Deuteronomy chapter 23. Yesterday we read Deuteronomy chapter 22, which talked about chastity, and this is a Christian virtue that we're supposed to follow. And it really just, we read it yesterday, but this morning it got me thinking that sometimes some Christians I'm guilty of this. I was guilty of this rather. We tend to like to coin around God's commandments. We tend to like to infiltrate around God's commandments just to fulfill our own personal pleasure and our own personal taste and standards and desires. And I really just got to think that, wow, I'm also guilty of this. I was guilty of this, but I'm praying to God to give me more grace to overcome that spirit of wanting to, coin God's commandments just to fulfill the way I want to live my life. And really, it's a sin that sincerely we just need to pray for God to help us. And you might think, well, how do I know that I'm doing this? But you actually know, because if the commandment says this unconsciously or unknowingly, you're gonna be like, well, it could also be this. God could have also meant this. You're not God. You didn't know what God meant. So don't try to coin it around. Just do what God said. And I know it sounds like, oh my God, it's so easy, but it's not necessarily easy. At the same time, it's not necessarily hard, because if it's hard, if it's not doable, people have done it. People live by the 10 commandments, so it's possible, but it's not necessarily easy. At the same time, it's not necessarily hard. We just need to pray and ask God to give us grace and, more mercy. So yeah, today we're reading Deuteronomy chapter 23. It has 25 verses, which I personally find really short, because Deuteronomy chapter 28 has 68 verses. Literally 68. Let that just sink into your head. 68 verses. This is just 25. This cannot be compared to 68 verses. That is a lot. But yeah, it's pretty short and straightforward. So it mostly talked about various laws and morals. So if you guys understand, the book of Deuteronomy ends at 34, and we're currently reading 23. So it's kind of like called for that we're talking about laws and morals, because now the Israelites are getting closer and closer to crossing the river of Jordan, and then they will, get into the promised land. So Moses is very, very distinctively and aggressively, because not like mostly like aggressively fight. He is saying it with a hard fist. Do not disobey God. Obey God's commandments. Obey God's statutes. Do not practice idolatry. Do not make idols for yourself. Do not make gods for yourself. And he's really, really putting and infiltrating and emphasizing on this whole obey God, obey God, obey God. And as you guys know, during the beginning of the book of Deuteronomy, like Deuteronomy chapter 5 and 10, I was like, wow, are the Israelites going to obey God, or are they going to disobey God? But guys, I'm currently reading Deuteronomy chapter 30. As you guys know, I am 7 chapters ahead of the chapter day Bible reading plan. I personally, I unknowingly did that to myself actually. I'm 7 chapters ahead, and I'm currently reading Deuteronomy chapter 30, and I would like to say that there has been so much foreshadowing of the Israelites disobeying God's commandments, that I can't wait to read the book of Joshua. Like I can't wait for us to start reading the book of Joshua, so I just can just let this suspense dismiss, because I'm literally just in so much suspense. I'm gonna know, would they disobey, would they not disobey? There's been so much foreshadowing that, the nerd in me just feels like you're gonna disobey, because the foreshadowing, it's just too much, that I just feel like these people are gonna disobey. But yeah, some verses that stood out to me were verse 5, which said, nevertheless, the Lord your God will not hearken to Balaam, but the Lord your God turned the curse into a blessing for you, because the Lord your God loved you. Oh my God. God's love is literally amazing. I've reached a part of my life where I personally like to say that I have moved from the ideology of seeing God as my leader to the ideology of seeing God as my father, to the ideology of seeing God as someone who loves me, to the ideology of seeing God as my friend. So I'm kind of like blossoming into that personal and intimate relationship with God. And I really pray that God gives me more grace and ability to maintain that relationship with Him, because, if you're building something, or if you're trying to be better at something, when you finally reach that goal, the hard part is actually maintaining it. So that's what I'm really praying to God. I'm not praying about the present, I'm praying about the future. So yeah, another verse that stood out to me was verse 22 to 23, which said, "But if you refrain from vowing, it shall be no sin in you. You shall be careful to perform what has passed your lips, for you have voluntarily vowed to the Lord your God that you have promised with your mouth." Sincerely just talks about the power of the tongue. So when you go by your own will, by your own power, and go to God and you're like, "God, I'm going to make this promise to you. This is what I will do." When God fulfills His own end of the promise and you don't, that's a very big sin. The Bible said so, not me. So you should be very careful with the promises you make with God. Don't try to think like you are, challenging God. You're telling God, "God, if you do this for me, I'm going to go donate this amount of money." God does that thing for you and then you don't do it. And then your whole mind just feels like, "I'm challenging Him." You're not challenging Him. You're making a covenant with Him, which you're supposed to keep because you made it out of your own willpower. So yeah, that really was just fun and very, I think, something that needed to be highlighted. And another verse that stood out to me was verse 24. "When you go into your neighbor's vineyard, you may eat your fill of grapes, as many as you wish, but you shall not put any in your vessel." So this kind of like, I kind of like connected it or compared it to when maybe your friend has just successfully achieved something and you go to celebrate with them and you're trying to like pilfer, or let me bring it down a little bit, tap into the blessing. I think that's a more better vocab to use. Tap into the blessing. Really, I don't feel that's necessarily. Pray to God to help you get your blessing, and sincerely, your blessing might be better than that. So yeah. And lastly, the last verse that stood out to me was verse 20, which said, "To a foreigner you may lend upon your interest, but to your brother you shall not lend upon your interest, that the Lord your God may bless you and all that you undertake, and the land which you are entering to take possession." Sincerely, Jesus just talks about us loving ourselves. To someone you don't know, you can charge them for something. You can have the aim of making profit or gaining something from adding to them. But to your brother, to someone that you take personally to heart, to someone that you shouldn't, put the aim of gaining something when you're trying to help them. And so I really found out that that was something that has just been underrated in society. But yeah, nonetheless, I'm really trying to make the videos really short. Sincerely, I have a lot to talk about each chapter, so I'm gonna try to just keep them at 5 minutes. But yeah, I hope you guys are staying fine and doing all right, and we've come to an end of a chapter a day series for today. Can't wait to see you guys tomorrow with another chapter, and stay safe and accept God as your personal Lord and Savior. Don't do it because I said so. Do it because you know He's your only way out and He's your last bus stop. So yeah, thank you and have a nice day. Bye.